Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm a Ukrainian Canadian. Today is August 8th, 2024, and let's get to the news happening in Ukraine, shall we? But first, let's go to Kursk because now it's day number 3 of our special military operation in Russia. And as a matter of fact, this has been the very first time that Russia has been invaded since World War II. And it's great to see that Ukraine has essentially picked up the initiative and finally has decided to attack Russia. This is something that I was talking about for a very long time, and I'm finally happy to see that Ukraine has begun this operation. So what happened in the last few days, 2.5 days since the operation began? Ukraine, as far as we're concerned, controls around 150 square kilometers of Kursk. Around 20 settlements at the current moment are under Ukrainian control. Hundreds of Russian prisoners have been captured, prisoners of war, and they have been transferred to Ukraine. So this is a total disaster for Russia. A big collapse of the front for the Russians. They had some trenches, they had some defensive lines that were built in Kursk, and they had some soldiers, but clearly they weren't prepared for this. And this really shows you how much of a brilliant operation this was for Ukraine, because in the past, we've seen that Russia did know about most Ukrainian offensive operations weeks beforehand, so they had the time to prepare, but this time they were completely unprepared. So this is really a stunning, brilliant operation. Another thing is, we know that Ukraine is continuing its advances. It's still very unclear what's going on, and it's good that it's that way. We don't want to know exactly what Ukraine is doing, but there are a few theories of what the objectives are for Ukraine. We know that there is a nuclear power plant in Kursk that isn't that far away from where Ukraine currently holds certain settlements. They're about 25 to 30 kilometers away. But perhaps now that I've talked about this, I might think that Ukraine is not going to try to go for the nuclear power plant. Instead, I think Ukraine's goal is to really try to force Russia to commit reserves and resources in Kursk and controlling the battlefield narrative. Russia has to respond in this situation. And I don't think that Ukraine is really interested in capturing the nuclear power plant because, first of all, we know that it's very likely that Russia has already managed to move some special forces and experienced troops in that nuclear power plant. It's, priority number 1. And so I think that really the main objective for Ukraine is to really try to scramble Russian forces and, make them come to Ukraine. Ukraine can ambush them. They have set up many ambush points, mined certain roads where Russia could be using to move their logistics and their troops towards a Ukrainian-controlled territory. So overall, this is just a change of narrative for Ukraine, which is really good because in the last few months, essentially in the past year, Russia's been controlling the narrative. They've attacked first, and Ukraine always has to react to what Russia's doing. This time, Russia has to react to what Ukraine is doing, and this is really a great advantageous situation. And better yet, this is happening on Russian soil, so Russia has no choice but to respond. You're seeing how much of an embarrassment this is for Putin. Hundreds of Russian prisoners of war captured. This is already a huge PR propaganda win for Ukraine, which is being spread all throughout pro-Russian Telegram channels. As a matter of fact, YouTube has been shut off officially today, so Russians can no longer watch YouTube. So overall, you're seeing that the Kremlin is losing the narrative here. And another thing I want to mention is that what happened to Russia's nuclear threat, right? Ukraine showed that this is just a bluff by Russia. Ukraine literally escalated to the highest level, which is invading Russia, something that the West was trying to tell Ukraine not to do for 2.5 years. Don't you dare invade Russia. Don't do it. Just protect your territory. And Ukraine went for a daring move, attacked Russian soil, control settlements, and what? Russia's going to launch nukes now? It's been almost 3 days, and Russia hasn't responded whatsoever. They're scrambling for response. And also, as a matter of fact, where's the CSTO? The so-called Russian equivalent of the NATO defensive alliance. Not a peep from them. And Putin pretends like nothing is going on in Kursk. And I'll talk about it in my next slide. So another thing is, of course, another theory of why Ukraine did that is to also cut off Russian logistics. There's railway connections. There's also a very important gas pipeline that goes through Kursk, which Ukraine now controls. And so based on just the terrible, slow response by the Russians, there's literally, still day number 3 and there's still no Russian presence in most of these controlled settlements, really shows you that Putin wasn't expecting this. He really thought that the United States and NATO would be protecting Russia from a Ukrainian incursion within Russia. And so what a brilliant operation. I know a lot of people will be complaining or saying that this is not a smart attack. I think this is brilliant. And Ukraine needed to do something risky, as I've mentioned in my previous video. Risks need to be taken, and also the element of surprise was definitely there. And definitely shows that there was a lot of preparation beforehand. This wasn't just something that was thought in a week or so. This is definitely months and months of preparation, which could explain why Ukraine was willing to trade some territory in Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, and that very difficult region in the Donbass area, where Russia is indeed having the initiative and gaining some ground, but not as quickly as this one. Ukraine literally has broken through Russian lines over 30 kilometers now in certain directions. So this is massive. Now let's talk about the response by Putin. So yesterday, Putin summoned an emergency meeting. So he met with the usual suspects. So Shoigu, Belousov, the new Minister of Defense, Gerasimov, and Bortnikov. And so based on the body language that you could see in that emergency meeting from Putin, you could see that he is anxious. He was angry, nervous. It's just the body expression just told everything. And he knows. Gerasimov was telling him yesterday that everything's under control. We've destroyed 60 armored vehicles. We've injured hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers, killed hundreds, right? He knows he's being told lies. And it's just hilarious to see that in action. And you could see that he's probably getting flashbacks of last year's Prigozhin's mutiny, which is just fantastic. And, today, now he summoned the governor of Kursk, and essentially he said that beautiful, beautiful statement: life poses extraordinary, challenging tasks of helping people while you certainly have the necessary professional knowledge. He says to the governor, skills and experience, they alone are not enough. In today's circumstances, you need a certain level of courage and composure. I don't know what that means, but clearly it shows that Putin doesn't know what he's saying, and he doesn't know what to say. Right? What is there to say when half of your region of Kursk is occupied and liberated, I should say, by the Ukrainians? So you can see that Putin is extremely nervous right now. He's angry, and this is the Putin that we want to see, right? A Putin that is stressed, that essentially loses composure and loses the grip that he has over the entire Kremlin structure, and his governors and his little minions, they feel that he's angry and stressed, and this is excellent for us. Also, just to throw salt on a wound, he promised to compensate every Kursk resident that fled the region a handsome sum of $120 USD, right? 10,000 rubles, essentially. I don't know about you, but most of these regions have been fully annihilated. This is the first time that Russia started using Iskander and ballistic missiles on its own territory, destroying entire, small villages and homes. So you think that $120 is really going to help? I seriously doubt it. And in my last slide, I will show you guys the response from the locals that are fleeing in droves. Thousands and thousands of Kursk residents are fleeing Sudzha and other big villages in the region because they know what's going on, right? They're being told lies by the government that everything's under control, and yet the Ukrainians keep advancing and advancing and advancing. So let's take a look. Now, this is a video of residents from Sudzha that fled a few hours ago that are addressing their Tsar for help. Now, obviously, I'm not going to narrate the entire video, but just to show you again that the Russians fall to the same. How many of these videos have we seen of Russians addressing Putin, whether there's a natural disaster or the wives of Russian soldiers that are missing or dead, asking for compensation? They're always addressing Putin. And it's funny because they don't realize that he doesn't care about them. So let's see what they have to say. And before I actually narrate the video, you can see the lines in Kursk to fill up gas. You can see massive lines and also massive traffic for to get out of Kursk. So residents are fleeing in droves, and you can see that there's a massive total panic right now. Ukraine needs to keep going with the momentum because this is really chaotic within the Russian military. They don't know where to go, which settlements they need to secure first. Rather, this is a mess right now for the Russian military, which is really fantastic news for us, the ones that support Ukraine. So they're saying, dear Mr. Putin, the residents of the Russian Federation, Kursk region, Sudzhansky, we are contacting you on the 6th. Foreign troops with NATO equipment entered our land. Within a few hours, our city was reduced to ruins. Our relatives, husbands, and neighbors are defending Donbass. We lost our land. We lost our homes. We fled under fire, ran among the ruins. Many are without documents. We would like to contact you so that you help us. We were left alone. We supported the special military operation. We helped our army, and we continue to help from the first days of the SMO. Anyways, you guys don't need me to be narrating the entire video. You get the point that Russia, the only thing that the Russian citizens, the majority of them, understand is force and strength. And when Ukraine picked up the initiative, shows its strength and its force, only then Russians understand that they need to start negotiating when they're weak, when they're in a moment of panic. And so in the meantime, Ukraine is only going to help accelerate this process for the Russians to realize that, you know, maybe they should stop this war. Maybe they should stop invading and attacking the Ukrainians for 2.5 years now. So guys, I've asked you multiple times in my last videos to help the Ukrainian drone funds. There's plenty of them in Ukraine. Help them out. This is really making a huge difference. Right now, the Ukrainians are flying FPV drones throughout Kursk, throughout Belgorod, and other regions within Ukraine to stop these Russian orc waves and attacks. And this is also playing a huge impact in Kursk right now, where the Russians are in disarray. And whenever they see a drone, they completely they book, they run away. And this is really great news. Ukraine is really making it a deadly weapon against the Russians. So if you have any money that you're willing to donate, please donate to the drone program or whatever other donations that you want to give, whether it be humanitarian aid or whatever, but please help out and continue helping the Ukrainians. You can see what the Ukrainians can do when they're supported, when they have the resources, when the world is behind them. So let's continue helping Ukraine. With all that in mind, please, if you enjoy my content, subscribe to my channel, like my video, leave me a comment, and I will see you guys in the next one. Slava Ukraini!